Today is April 22nd, 2024. It is 1:28 p.m. We are at the Center for Sacramento History in Sacramento, California. Can you please state your full name and spell it for me?
Yeah, Márquez Alonzo Nieto, M-A-R-C-U-S, Alonzo, A-L-O-N-Z-O, Nieto, N-I-E-T-O.
Okay, and can you please provide your date of birth?
I was born March 18th, 1949.
And where were you born?
I was born at Mercy Hospital, Sacramento.
Nice. And what is your marital status?
I'm married.
And do you have children?
I have two children. Victor, he's 39, and Michelle, she's 34.
And where were you raised?
I was raised in North Sacramento. Interesting bit of a history about me and my family. I come from my dad and mother divorced when I was 5. And so my sister and I were then left to be raised with my aunt, my mother's sister, who owned a ranch on East Levy Road in Sacramento. My dad, meanwhile, was still in the military, working at McLeod Air Force Base, and didn't have the means to take care of us. So we raised on the ranch, learned how to do ranching things, and next door was the Rancho Charros Association of Sacramento, Jose Davalos, and I learned to do the ranch thing there, ride horses, clean barns, do things for horses, for animals. Saddle horses, it was kind of fun actually, and to this day I still like to ride horses. But that's where I was raised until about age 13.
You said the Charro Association?
The Rancho Charros Association.
Wow. And do you remember a little bit more about that association?
Yeah, they represented all the Mexican people, immigrants who came to California who from the ranch. And he had the only big ranch in the Sacramento area, in North Sacramento. So he had 8 acres, had a barn, large barn, a lot of horses. On weekends, the Charros would get together and they'd do their skill set things like roping, herding, riding, breaking in horses. It was kind of a fun thing actually. And then once every 6 months they would have a charreada where everyone would come down and in full Western gear and do the part. Roping was one of the things that the Charros do really good.
So did you learn to do that as a young child?
Yes, I did.
And so were you like part of the desfiles?
Well, because I was next door kid. The Davalos had 3 sons and a daughter. The daughter, Susie, was my sister's best friend at the time. And Joey and Albert and Roberto were the kids that eventually owned the restaurant, Davalos restaurant over on Franklin Boulevard.
Wow.
They still do, actually.
Yeah. So you said your father was in the Army, or
he was in the Army Air Force during World War II in England, stationed in England, flying and operating on B-17s, and so he never left he didn't. I guess he didn't want to necessarily be the son that has to obey the father, his father, Alonso. He was kind of a dominant person, so my dad didn't want to, necessarily, be under his thumb all the time. But he couldn't do anything about it with us kids because, once again, he was still had to fulfill his obligation to the Army Air Force. What was the Air Force now? And he did that by the time we were early teens. He'd finished working at the Air Force Base as a military guy, and then became a civilian there for next 20 years.
Mm-hmm. So you said that your parents divorced when they were 5.
When I was 5.
And you went to live with your aunt. Is this on your mom's side?
My
or your
mom's
dad's?
aunt, yeah, my mom's sister.
Your mom's sister. And what happened to your mom?
She moved to Wisconsin, of all places. So she recently passed away, and I went back there to see her get laid to rest, and her only son was by that marriage. We had known each other since the time of 1975, 76. So she was somewhat of an outcast over there because she's, of Mexican culture and they're of the Scandinavian culture. Mm-hmm. And she did say that she felt kind of different there.
Yeah.
Being, the only kind of person like that.
Only Mexicana there.
Yeah.
And so she marries this guy or goes off with him and then leaves you with the sister. And your dad is working, and then when you're in your teens, he comes and looks for you, or?
Well, he takes not control. He takes custody of my sister and I. Uh-huh. He was able to rent a little place on North Kate Street called Rimmer, and that's where it was closer to the urban north area of Sacramento rather than the rural area of North Sacramento.
Yeah. And your sister is younger or older?
She's younger by a year and a half. Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel like you had to be her protector at a young age, or how did that work?
Somewhat. We were fairly close to the Davalos family. My aunt, she was somewhat of a disciplinarian. She was always working. She worked for the Southern Pacific Railroad as in their administration. So she was never home. So she relied on her daughter to be in charge while she was gone and we were, there. I was then sent to Catholic school in North Sacramento, and I did that for a couple of years.
Yeah. What's the name of the school?
St. Joseph's. Yes. In North Sacramento, near Del Paso Boulevard. Mm-hmm. So that was that kind of relationship. My sister was fine. She was a fairly independent person. She didn't need directions necessarily. She could handle herself pretty well as well.
So tell me a little bit about your schooling. You mentioned you went to Catholic school for a couple year
and then Rio Tierra Junior High School was the where we went that's our first year to live with my dad. So I was still 7th grader. My sister was barely 6th grader. So we stayed there. We went to that school until the time we graduated. We were supposed to go to Norte del Rio, but said we got bused to Grant. And so there, the group of the North Gators and Garland people that were living near Rio Tierra all went to Grant. So we formed a little bond among all of us there, even though, we weren't that close during junior high school. But the sports, issues, football, basketball, baseball kind of thing, was prominent, and we liked to really play football. So we were pretty good at that game for a while.
Yeah. So your junior high school, what was the racial makeup? It sounds like it was predominantly Mexican.
It was. It still is, actually.
Yeah.
Even to this day. Yeah, it was about every four out of every 10 was Latino.
Yeah.
Or Latina.
And so it sounds like you were part of the desegregation efforts during.
Yes, we were. Yes, I was.
You were saying you were being bused. Do you
yeah.
remember anything about what they said to you as a child about why you were being bused, or?
They never said anything, but I sort of did my own research, and found out, this is first year of bus in Sacramento County. So the integrating schools was a number one goal for many. And so that's what I found out to be the truth. My sister didn't want to go, so when it came time for her to go the following year, she decided, no, I'm going to stick it out and go to Nieto del Rio. I'm going to get there by any means possible. So she did that.
Wow, talk about independent.
Yeah.
Okay, so so you go to Grant High School, and tell me about what that was like, because now all the Mexican kids are being brought. So then, are you?
Well, because there was a group of us that played football and baseball, but mostly football. We had we always had a rival junior football team in junior high school. At the 9th grade was the first year of football, and Del Paso Junior High School was the rival for Rio Tierra. And so by the time we went to Granton, we knew a lot of these guys by the fact that we played against them. So it became a little more of a bonding issue. And so us group of guys that sort of came from Rio to Grant, we have a pretty good relationship with a lot of the tougher guys, if you will. The guys, troublemakers weren't an issue, not back then necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So we bonded. We had good friendships.
So it sounds like you had a pretty positive experience at Grant High School.
Oh, I did.
Do you remember any instances of experiencing discrimination, or when you were?
That's a good point. I tried to. A lot of the white kids I knew, they seemed to have it pretty good too. I mean, they excelled. They were in the student body, offices, yearbook things, and not a lot of us from the Northgate area or even the black people were from the Heights were in that. So I wasn't. I guess it was maybe it's initiative. Maybe it's that they were brought up to be leaders. I don't know. But the whole yearbook staff, the whole student body was white basically.
Mm-hmm. But all the students of color were in the sports.
Were in sports, at least the ones that I knew. Yeah, it was like that.
And you played baseball and football?
Yes.
And basketball?
Only as a JV, and then I just had another time to go the transfer crossover.
So what position did you play in football?
Football, I was quarterback. So I was leading the team for a couple of years, and that was an experience. Eddie Soto was the then coach of Grant High School football team. Eddie Soto was a very prominent Sacramento back in the day, in the 40s and 50s, because he was a tailback, and single wing football was still the rage of college football, and so Eddie Soto became somewhat of a Northern California star. So he decided to teach at Grant, and that's what he did. So it was kind of tough working under him because he wanted us to be better than anyone else in the team. And so he was kind of tough on us, but it was good in the end that he was. So baseball, I pitched. So I was a left-hander, and left-handers were still in vogue then. And it turned out to be my better sport, because I was pretty good in against the opposition for next 2-3 years. I pitched. We had a great baseball team. People with Leon Lee, Tony Rodriguez, Hank Garcia, to name a few. Leon Lee. We're all drafted in the pros. So that was, we always had pro scouts at our games, and so when I pitched, I was usually pretty good about that, being good. So yeah, so I had a good chance to be a major league ball player, but and things just didn't work out because personal reasons. So it wasn't easy. I guess I can talk about a little bit about that. One of the cheerleaders and I had a good relationship right in the end of the senior year, towards the end of the senior year. Things happened. She got pregnant. I wasn't ready at the time to be mature enough to be a father. So she didn't. We decided that she was going to have an abortion. Her father at the time took it real personal, and he thought it would be better for us to get married and not do this. And I just wasn't mentally, emotionally ready to do that. So he killed himself sometime in the summer when she was about just going to have the abortion, and that was that.
My goodness, I'm so sorry to hear.
Yeah, well, it happened, and so that was 1967. It's a long time ago.
It
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah,
Was she Mexican or
white girl.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Catholic or?
She was. To tell you the truth, I think she was Christian. She wasn't Catholic per se,
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to.
but she was a cheerleader. So
Yeah. So that's a lot to handle for a young man. And so, do you think that that's why you decided not to go pro, or?
it was a major reason why I didn't follow through. Getting emotionally, I just. Then I got the baseball draft too, so I was like in a late round draft choice, and they were going to offer a minimum contract back in the day of $7,500, and that would be your money to travel, use your money to travel on the traveling team in the minor leagues. And to talk with my dad, I said, I can't do that. I'm not ready to do that. I think that's not a good deal. And so it's about that time that all this emotional stuff started happening too. So
Yeah.
I didn't end up getting a contract. I didn't do that. Baseball, I did a little junior college stint trying to pitch, and didn't work out. I wasn't, just didn't have it. And about that time, that's when I got drafted by the military.
Yeah. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because
Sure.
I wanted to know a little bit more about your relationship with your father, who is kind of there. He's there, but he's not with you. He's not, you're not in his home. So now you're a teenager, and now you're introduced back into his life, and they literally move you and your sister, right? And how would you describe that relationship with your father?
Well, we sort of adored him because he was our way out of the rugged life in the rural area. For my aunt, she wasn't a very kind person in my mind. So it was like, thanks for rescuing us, Dad, that kind of thing. So we had a good relation. We had a kind relationship, happy relationship. My sister in particular, since my dad, was always, thought that she needed protected, but she really didn't. So she was like, his favorite among the two of us. And he still worked, he still went to work. And so the group of guys I was hanging with, they'd come down to his apartment after, his flat after school, and we'd be there until he got home. So we were, kind of our own, little clique, if you will. And we sort of did a lot of things together, the group of us, about 7 of us. And so my dad became the core center, the guy who was like, trying to be the friend to all my friends and the father to me. And it was that kind of way for a while. They really liked my dad. And my dad always, take us places when he could. And their parents knew who he was, and it would all worked out pretty good. He would, go to baseball games. He'd be there behind the backstop. I'd come out of work, and there we were, and he'd be there. So he was a pretty good guy. I really admire the fact that he went to what he did. My family, the father's side of the family, they immigrated here from Spain in the turn of the 19th century. They came via Hawaii. And then they settled in Lincoln. There was 3 families settled in Lincoln, Sacramento, and Gilroy. That's where they all 3 settled, families. My grandfather was the head of all the 3 brothers, and all the families were they sort of, when he sort of made the business decisions for everyone there. And during the war, he was an auxiliary cop, policeman, since a lot of younger people were out. So he was a cop then, beat cop then, as an auxiliary cop. So he had a little more, I guess you'd say, respect among a lot of people that knew him. Eventually, he got in the music business. Discolandia was his store for a while, and he and his brothers, all three of the brothers, they exclusively operated juice boxes throughout Sacramento. They had a good monopoly on that for the most part, until records became more common. So that was that. I didn't have a good relationship with my grandfather, although my dad would take us, when we were living with my aunt, on weekends he'd come and take my sister and I to go visit his dad and their family. So at least a couple weeks a month we'd always be over their house visiting, and doing things together.
And where was this?
We're in North Sacramento, and he's in. My grandfather was in Atlas, off of Franklin Boulevard.
Oh, okay, not too far.
Not too far, yeah.
Yeah. And so, did you end up graduating from high school? Or?
I ended up graduating from Grant, yes. I did.
What year was that?
67.
67. And you said the girlfriend, did you break up or?
Yeah, we sort of went different ways after high school.
Yeah. Okay, and then I think you told me you got drafted in 67.
No, I got drafted in 68. I took I went a semester in junior college to go play baseball.
That's right.
So I didn't start until the winter semester, which would be December, I think. And by then they were playing college. They played baseball all the time. So when I just fizzled out, I dropped out, and then I had 6 units of F. I carried over 6 units of F from junior college. Till I carried over till later in life when I went back to college.
You managed 6 units.
I managed those 6 units of F. They carried over. I had to overcome them, and to build the grade point average up and stuff. But
yeah. Okay, so you drop out and then you get drafted.
Yeah, in the spring and summer of 68. So
tell me how that worked. You get a letter. How does that work?
Get a letter. Yeah, so you're now the Army requests that you serve as a member of the military at this time of need. I can't remember the exact wording. And my dad made sure that no, you got to do it. You got to do it. So he didn't encourage me to leave. So I said, I'll do it.
Had you heard about what was happening in Vietnam? Or?
Yes, I did, because one of my friends, he's still a friend of mine. He had a little notoriety by the he was taken by an Associated Press photographer, taking out a 155 millimeter shell out of a howitzer and tossing it, and they captured that vision of him for the 4th Infantry Division doing that. And
what's his name?
Rudy Rodriguez. Yeah. And so when Rudy came back, he came back in 67. He had a relationship. He just made friendships, had a relationship with my ex-girlfriend. So they ended up getting married. And so Rudy was a good friend. And I guess we had not a great friendship after that, but we communicated still.
So you had heard about Vietnam through him? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that was basically my first encounter was that, and then we heard of other people who were there that got injured or hurt
So
or
what
died.
are the stories? What are the stories that are being told that you can remember? Because I know it's been a long time. Are they positive? Are they glorious? Are they...
A little bit of glorious, a little bit of sadness. I didn't form any thoughts about what I was going to do if I was going to go there. I said I was going to do my duty, you know. So I wasn't politically motivated or thoughtful at the time because I was more of a jock than anything else, you know.
Right. So you weren't really involved like with the anti-war
No.
movement or anything like
And
that?
there wasn't that much going on in high school on campus, yeah.
Yeah, that probably is a little bit later. Okay, so you get the letter in the mail. You're drafted. Your dad says you got to do this, and you're like, fine, of course I'll do this. So then what happens? Where do you go?
So the notice to report was, I believe, was that summer, and so I took a while. I didn't get to the indoctrination center on time. I was about a week late. I was, being, a guy that age, almost 19 at the time, and it was like, let's just don't do this. There's a couple other people we knew. Let's just don't do this, and let's do it. And until we finally did it. So we got reprimanded somewhat by the Naturalization Services. They were in charge. And so then we were off to Fort Lewis, Washington. That was in the winter, I believe, or of '68 for training. It was pretty cold then. I never saw snow. It was
Yes.
quite an interesting thing. But
where are you going? Is it is it the Army?
It's the Army, excuse me. Yeah,
Okay.
It's the Army. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Army sends us to Fort Lewis to training, basic training.
Yeah.
I sort of get my indoctrination there, the disciplinary stuff that you learn in basic training. I was a pretty decent runner, so I'd always be leading the group in running. We did a lot of running in basic training, and I'd be somewhat of a leading guy in the group because I was a pretty good, decent runner. Even in those big boots, combat boots, I was a pretty decent runner. So got through that process relatively quickly. I think it was about a little over 3 months. And then moved on to do advanced training, selected to go to Fort Lee, Virginia. And I was at Fort Lee, Virginia. They did a little combination of learning the ropes of the mechanized stuff, trucks, tanks, armored personnel carriers, and did that relatively quickly. And right after that, got assigned to Fort Carson, Colorado, rather than being directly into the funnel to Vietnam.
Is it more training that they're trying to get you?
No, they said if there's a slot or opening, you're going to be that person to go in there. Like it wasn't like the wholesale slots were whole military units being replaced by new guys. So we're just individually slotted. So it said there wasn't a time at the time I finished in Fort Lee for that to happen to go to Vietnam, which I was kind of glad at the time. So going to Fort Carson, to do a more advanced training with the mechanized unit was where I went for almost a year.
Wow.
So and then, it was about 11 months. So almost 2 years, so about 15 months of my 2 years were already completed. And then I got to notice you're going to go to Vietnam to serve as, in this artillery and this mechanized unit. So That's when things sort of like went off the wheels, off the tracks.
Were you hoping you were going to slide through, or what?
I was kind of hoping I would slide through, but I didn't. So I then changed my attitude. So when I had a reporting date, you had a month to report from the time you leave that Carson, Colorado. So I ended up being almost 4 months AWOL.
Really?
Yeah. And finally, my dad, he convinced me, for the name and for his name and everything else in the family, to go. So I went 4 months. I just showed up at the center, and there they read me the riot act and demoted me from a PFC to a private. But you're still going to go.
So you told me you had a month. They give you a month, and then during that time, mostly people go home. Is that what you did?
Yeah.
So you go home, and then you like it there.
I like it there. I go to San Francisco to a lot of the concerts. Did the Sacramento thing, but like the coming of age of music was in Northern California, so I just hung out on the streets for a while. Drinking, smoking pot.
Yeah.
Going to concerts.
And you're staying with your dad?
No.
Oh.
No.
But he knows you have a month to report.
Yeah, he knows that.
So now it's.
So now I don't talk to him for a while, and he's concerned that he probably. I'm not sure if he followed up with the military in terms of where's my son. I haven't heard from him. I'm not sure he did that, but they sure knew when I reported that I was late. Yeah, you're not late. You're AWOL. Yeah. So it was like, okay, you got me. I'm here. So all my hair came off. I had 4 months of hair growth.
Oh, wow.
So,
If you have pictures.
Not then. But one of the best things that happened at that time, right there in Oakland, and getting transitioned from to overseas life, was one of my good friends in high school. Went to Norte del Rio. His name was Danny Rodriguez. He eventually married the Davalos daughter. And so he was there. And we looked at each other and he says, "What are you doing here?" So we had the same thing with him. "What are you doing here?" So, we became, we sort of got caught up with, who we were for a while there. So we both are on the same plane going to Vietnam from Oakland.
Wow.
And so we were together for almost 2 weeks, 10 days in Oakland and about 4 or 5 days in the transition center in Vietnam, outside of Cam Ranh Bay. So he has it. So on the 4th day we're there, he gets his orders to go north to an infantry unit in Quang Tri province. I get orders to go to the mechanized unit, but they're in Da Nang, and they're getting ready to move out to Quang Tri, which is a northern. Quang Tri is the DMZ for the area. We're replacing Marines who were there already, and 10 had already happened, and so all the Marines were going to different areas. Some were going back to Da Nang, and so when I flew into Da Nang, one of my things I was going to do was try to find Danny, but he was up north, and so I was going to do that. I meet another friend of ours from high school, from Grand High School, black guy, at a PX center, and there he is. His name's Thelma, by the way. Thelma Warren was his name. And so Thelma he was our
Thelma
Warren. His daddy made him a woman's name. But he was kind of mean. He was pretty mean guy. He played defensive tackle and offensive linebacker for our football team at the time. So he's the guy that doesn't take any crap, and he was pretty tough about that. So anyway, there he is, the PX, and we're getting caught up, and I can't believe we're sitting there talking to each other.
Yeah.
And then he goes about his way, and I go about my way. So another day passes, and I'm back at the PX, and my good buddy from Grant High School, Sonny Reyes, Indian guy, he shows up. He's in the Marine Corps, and he's there already. And so we meet in the PX, and we sort of get caught up in what's going on. We spent a couple hours together while he's there. He has to go back to his unit, and I go back to my unit. So in a matter of 3 or 4 days, I'm meeting these people and my friends, that I didn't know were there. All happened in the first couple of weeks from leaving Oakland to get in Vietnam.
So what message were you thinking that you were like? What is happening?
It says why we were all here together. I thought it was kind of ironic, wow, we're all together. It didn't dawn on me that we're all here to fight or you can get shot at and get killed. And it was like, why did this happen to us? So I couldn't find out what was going on with Danny for 3 or 4 months I was there. That was one of my first things is want to know how he's doing. Maybe we can hook up and get together somewhere. We can let's go. There's the highway is out of Da Nang to Quang Tri is Highway 1. Goes to Quang Tri, goes to Hue, which is the ancient capital. The army is in all these units are all interspersed along Highway 1, going to Quang Tri. So I was hoping that maybe we can, I was on a convoy. We can, that was my first assignment, doing the convoys. So we do the convoys, we go up north and drop off munitions, pick up, return with destroyed things they wanted to keep, like APCs or tanks, so they can recycle them. So that kind of thing took for about 3 or 4 months. And I finally find out from my sister that Danny's already back in the States. He had lost a leg. He stepped on a claymore. His first week, his first assignment,
wow.
In Quang Tri, he loses a leg on a claymore. And he's back in the States. I was shocked. I felt disenchanted about the whole thing. And right about that mid-time, doing the job of the mechanized units, transferring stuff back and forth from Da Nang to Quang Tri, which is about 3-hour drive, 4-hour drive, and then if you aren't getting in an ambush or anything like that, it's something you can do in one day. So I started seeing a lot of what we were doing there. It became more and more prominent and noticeable. When we'd come back, our base was next to a Marine Air Force base, Air Naval base, right along China. It's called China Flats in Da Nang. And the air base is right there, and we're adjacent to the air base, projected on a hill, and so the hill covers all the valley below, and inside the hill is the base, Army base, and then there's a road between the Army base and the Air Force base and Marine base. So that was like something, you start seeing things from a different perspective. You start to see how the Vietnamese people were, the civilians were being treated. You start seeing, the civilian in the rural areas, how they were much different than the ones in the city or in the urban areas. And you could almost sense that some of those guys are Viet Cong. You're a friend during the day and enemy at night. So he became somewhat jaundiced in the relationship that you had with the higher ups in the military or immediate, unit chiefs and things of that nature, because they don't care about them. They don't care about the Vietnamese. They don't care a hoot about them. But you start identifying what their plight was, and you could see during the course of a month after month after month, you could see a lot more about the civilian population being brutalized or being caught in the middle, and you start wondering, why are we here? Why are we still doing this? a lot of guys started getting this attitude. Why are we still doing this? And so you'd see a lot of different elements of the military, the Navy. The Marines, the Air Force, the Army. Guys sort of like not dropping out, but they're hanging out together when they can, since everything's fairly close. And then the attitude was, we don't want to be here anymore. This is not working. It's not right what we're doing here.
Yeah. I would love to hear a little bit more about your statement about you identifying with the Vietnamese, and I'm thinking of your upbringing, or part of your upbringing living in rural North Sacramento, and knowing that sort of countryside, and you're making comments about how you could see the difference between the urban and the rural Vietnamese and how they lived, and that you're starting to identify with them. Can you walk me through a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. It starts with a lot of the young kids, right? The kids were always doing deals for the adults, whether they're urban or rural. Some of the kids we would get would do things for you, and you vice versa do things for them. And so a lot of the kids, they were poor. They're homeless. A lot of them were homeless, but you couldn't tell who they were homeless. Who their parents were, things of that nature. So you had a little better relationship identifying, or at least getting to know about the family or who they were through your interactions with them, the kids, that is, on the street or in the inside the compounds where they do some odds and ends with their mama sons. They'd hang out. They were allowed to come on the base. So I in particular, getting pot was an issue. Not an issue, but it was something that happened. Period. It just happened. And then you see that the group started, segregating by the heads, the beer drinkers, the straight crowd. That segregation started to develop over time and became real prominent towards the end of my tour there. It's almost like you had a rivalry, not a rivalry, but standoffish. You do your thing, I'll do ours. Just don't get you got my back when I'm supposed to have my back. Just don't mess it up. So we started to have these rivalries, not the rivalries, these kind of segregated things, and they'd criticize us, we'd criticize them, for who we were. And so the kids I was telling you about, they take care. They'd find the pot for us, and they'd let us have it. We'd give them money for their cause and for what they wanted to do. So it all worked out pretty good at that point in time. So when you went, there's around your base camp, there's these like rural areas, right? There's villages down there you can actually see. We're about 150, 200 feet above the river and the village. So after a while, we started, we can actually go outside the perimeter with, armed, of course, and go just visit, some of the kids and their families, get to know who they were. And it was kind of fun, actually, because they'd share with us their bounty, their food, a lot of green vegetables, and they did eat pork. They had, the pork was red from the dirt and from what they ate, but at least you got to know who they were, and you sort of had sympathy for what they were doing, trying to make it. But even if they were Viet Cong in the nighttime, they still, you still admire them. They admire you for helping them out. So you sort of have this idea that these people are good people, but they're caught in the middle sometimes. And so when they're caught in the middle, you can't tell if they're VC out to get you, or they're just doing what they have to do to survive. And
right.
it was something that you admired about them, but at the same time you're in your little group. When you come back on the base, it's not you're not an American. You're just a GI with your group. Out there, you're an American. So it was kind of standoffish, that thing. I had a minor injury during a rocket attack. I got projected in the air, and my back I had some problems, lower back problems. I had a disc that was moved from the impact. I had a disc that was bulging, and I still have it to today, actually. I try to work my way through it, but that injury sort of caused me to that was my 8th month there. So I had 4 months to go, and so start counting the days. You're always counting the days, short, long. The people who are short are always wanting just not to do anything to avoid, so time runs out, you can leave. Guys in the middle, well, we've got a long ways to do it. Guys in the beginning, they're just everybody's pawn. They're doing everything. They get to do what no one else wanted to do. So that was kind of the cyclical relationship of being a GI at the time. You're a long timer, mid timer, short timer, and that always played a kind of a role in how you get along. So
you turned 21 there, or 22, or
22, I believe it was, yeah. But I didn't have a birthday celebration like that.
Oh, no.
It was like, it was like another day.
Yeah. So you got injured, and you still had, how many months you said?
4 more months ago,
4
yeah.
months.
Yeah.
And what happens to
I went on,
or?
well, I got on the sick call list, When you get on sick call, you after, even the injury, you're taken to a field, a mobile med center, if you will. They had them between the Marine base and the Army office base. So they took the, X-ray machines weren't very mobile then. So they did more along the lines of, well, if you can do this, you don't need to be, here, staying here for observation. You can go back to your unit. So they gave you some, pain relief. And that sort of helped out. But, you had your own, for illegal pain relief from the street. And when you go back to my barracks, and that's when I started hanging out with, the various crowds. There was a group of people who were actually AWOL there. And you got to know some of those people. And then they had the big move to go to back all the Vietnamese Army and Air Force, to back them up and go into the DMV, just west of Quang Tri, a big movement to disrupt the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And the Vietnamese, this was their big time to show what they can do after all their training. The military units, including the mechanized units, went to back them up, support them. Well, it didn't take long for the Viet Cong and the NVA to just make things really bad for everyone. They just pushed the Vietnamese back out of the valley, out of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and pushed them back into South Vietnam. And a lot of American units and people were getting stung by all the counterattacks. And we lost a good friend. I lost a good friend that time. He was one of our group, and it was really sad. He was killed shot down out of the sky he has a helicopter. So that was happening right about then. And so right about then, after that whole failed movement, took about 2 weeks to a month for it to be a total disaster. And so I'm 3 months now, I'm about 2 months, 60 days closer to leaving the country. So I had orders. Everyone has orders to go to R&R. So at about that time, I had my orders to go R&R. And I chose to go to Sydney, Australia. And so that's what I did. I went to Sydney, Australia, leaving the country. I went with a guy I met there. I met at the R&R Center. So I was there for a week, and I came back. And I said, you know what? I'm not going back to my unit. I'm just not going back. I have 60 days to go. I'm just not going back to my unit. So I just hung out with a group of people that were in a similar kind of situation, the group I was telling you about.
The AWOL?
The AWOL group, yeah. So I became AWOL my last 2 months there. So
So you're making this decision, which is not
it's
not a good decision.
No, it's not a good decision, but
you're like you're desperate, or what?
I'm disenchanted. I'm disenchanted.
You're just like, I can't do this anymore.
I'm disenchanted with the whole effort.
Yeah.
The whole thing. I'm not,
the whole war.
The whole war.
You're just like, I can't do this.
Yeah. The buzz went off. Just that's it.
That's it.
Yeah. It wasn't about me being a member of the military anymore and having to do something that wasn't going to make a bit of difference in the end, but having all that take place and you're seeing it, you say to yourself, yeah, I'm not going to get killed doing this the last 2 months of my term here. So I did know the company clerk, you had these relationships. So the company clerk was a younger guy, a white guy. He was younger and newer. He was barely in country for about 2 months, and he took care of a lot of the stuff. And so he had all the orders, and they came down from the military into the company level. So he had all the orders, and we'd check in with him every now and then to see what's going on. So he said, I have your orders here, but they're still looking for you. I said, yeah, I imagine so. So right at my last week of before I was supposed to leave, I show up at the company headquarters, and then the company commander just lays into me about your dereliction of duty, what you've done. I can do this to you. I just want you out of here. So we're going to issue 2 field grade Article 15s for being AWOL. Field grade Article 15 means you're like you did something contradictory to the military code of honor in the field. So I went back. But they gave my orders to leave, and so I was happy for that. I was leaving the country, So the orders I had didn't reflect the field grade Article 15s. They didn't accompany me. I had my orders they were cut earlier. They issued the orders to go back and report. So they wanted me to report for 4 months to Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Even after I left Vietnam and my drafted time was up, they made me do the extra time that I was AWOL. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I told my dad, I got home and said, I got to do 4 more months, Pop. They want me to do 4 months at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I said, okay. So I did after Vietnam, I said to myself, I looked up all my friends, had a little night at the homecoming party, a little welcoming party. My sister and all her friends, my brother, my brother from half brother.
Wisconsin.
No, I have a half brother too.
Oh, another, okay.
Yeah, so they all should come to my dad's place, and my sister came with her little daughter. I picked her up and said yes. I was happy to be home. I could see all my friends. And then people started talking about things, what you do there, and who is this, and what happened to Danny, blah blah blah. I said, yeah, I know, and I remember. So I looked up Danny, met with him. It was kind of hard to see him, missing a leg. But he was with Susie Davalos, my sister's best friend. So it was good to see them.
Yeah.
And so
Like, kind of like your sister almost.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, he told me what happened. I felt bad for the fact that he had to do that, go through that the first week, and he had a good attitude about it. He was more philosophical than I ever thought he would be about losing his leg and being home after only 1 week in Vietnam. That was sad. So I didn't want to go back after my day to report once again to report. I didn't want to go back. So I had a long discussion with my dad. I said, Dad, I can't do this. Yeah, you can. You only got 4 months to go. So I'm 2 days late. And so I said, what's 2 days? And so I drive. I saved all my money from Vietnam and bought a car. So I drove from Sacramento to Fort Huachuca, Arizona in one night. And I report to the company commander. And that was kind of interesting, kind of 4 months, I must admit. So his name was, he was Teles. He was a captain in the unit there. And he was telling me about, we have this thing here in this post is everyone here is short. It's like you. Says, if you want to make it through, you're going to have to do a few things for me. He opens up his drawer. I always remember this. He pulls out the Field Grade Article 15. He says, I'll tear these up and they never happened if you play for my football team on the post. I said, okay, I guess. That was a big deal for the Fort Huachuca to have their own little league of company football teams. And they were, well stocked with equipment and stuff. And it was like there was 8 teams on the post. So I jumped right away. I said, I can do this.
Were you like, pinch me or what?
I can do this. And so the time went by fairly quick,
Finally someone gets my skill set.
Yeah. Then, a couple of times we'd go down to Tucson to the University of Arizona.
Yeah.
Where a lot of GIs from the southern part of the state would go just, hang out.
Yeah.
Because it was a good place to hang out, Tucson. So I go through the schedule, the 8 games. I don't get hurt and do well for the team. We all, we win for the company, and I felt pretty good about that. So obtained the time to leave. I'm going to leave. But right about that time, I'm starting to think to myself, I want to be somebody. I just don't want to be this failed person who didn't do it right in the military and didn't serve, like it was supposed to be done. I said, I want to be somebody. So I'm going to enroll in American River College when I get home. And so I enrolled in American River College. And since I didn't have a good understanding of reading and writing, I focused on improving my English skills. And so I did every day. I had classes every day, either English composition or writing, regular writing. And so I had a teacher. She was I'm not sure how her name was. She was there in America. She was really sympathetic to GIs coming in and wanting to do better for themselves. So she was always very helpful to making sure the guys like myself, if we were willing to learn under her, she was willing to put the time in. Mm. And so about that time, that first year, I was like, okay, I can read. I was just like a sponge, reading everything I could find. James Clavell, the Shogun, the big thick book, and I went through that and did a composition on that first year. I said, yeah, I could do this. And so I applied through the EOP office. They wanted me to apply for one of the universities because GI fit the bill. Chicano would student.
What year is this?
This is 1972. 72. I'm
You apply EOP where?
at American River College.
Oh, they have EOP.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
Isn't it called EOPS?
Yeah.
Or is that different? Okay.
yeah, it was still EOP then.
Okay, great. Okay.
So I worked with the counselor to do my application for the for Davis, for Cal, and for Sac State. So I meticulously put together the requirements of especially the letter. It took a long time to do
The statement.
of who I was, and apparently that helped out quite a bit. So when the word came back that that second semester, you've been accepted, I said, oh, where? I said, UC Berkeley. I said, oh, great, So
Good for you.
that started me off, and I was focused, on becoming a real student. One of my things was, to always talk, put Vietnam perspective into everything I did. The writing part of it, the culture that we were disrupted, and how similar it was to a lot of other countries, and how the anti-war crowd wasn't the bad guys. They weren't the bad guys, and so a lot of my discussions, a lot of my writings, a lot of my learning was all centered around that process.
So you went to Cal in fall of 72 or 3?
That was in 73.
Uh-huh.
It was 73.
And what did you major in?
I didn't declare that. I didn't declare in AR, but I had to put something down for the declaration for the application, and I said psychology, behavioral psychology. That was one of the majors there, so I'll do that. So because Cal was into research, everything they did was into research, developing the fundamentals of research, the fundamentals of math. It was all part of the research process, and so that was very helpful to me in doing it. The motivation, the wanting to learn, the skill sets of a researcher.
So you're like considered an older student, by the time you get to.
I walked around on campus with long hair and an army trench coat.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, do you have pictures of that?
I think I do. Yes.
Can you get those?
Yeah, I think I can do that.
I would love that. And Berkeley is sort of the bed place of anti-war
It was
movement.
the center of it. Yeah.
And here you are, a Chicano with long hair and an army coat. And did you get your degree in psychology?
I did.
And are you experiencing PTSD? Are you recognizing that?
I did experience. I had, especially when my dad passed. I had it just came rushing back to me.
And he passed when?
95.
So you're older by then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What about your personal life? Do you find a wife when? Or multiple, or what?
So, I had a girlfriend at AR, and when I went to Cal, I said, you know what, I'll try to help you. I'll try to see if you come to Cal with me following year. So she did it on her own, and so we, my second year there, we had our apartment, and we stayed together, and that's sort of like probably the worst thing I ever did, because we didn't, we just didn't see the world the same way as we thought we would. Plus, I had a big dog, and he was like my bodyguard in a sense, very, very, very astute Malamute, big dog. He was, in fact, he would always go to school with me. He'd walk to school with me. He'd hang out at the quad while I went to class, and he'd be there all day until I walked back to the quad. And he'd be around, he'd see me, go back with me. Very smart dog. There were, there's a lot of dogs like that at the time, living in, people had dogs, and they'd hang out on the campus, and the dogs, they had their own little, way of getting around, and it was just kind of fun to see that dynamic take place, and then see my dog just identify me and come right out of it. So after I broke up with my girlfriend, I moved in with a group of guys, 2 Chicanos and 3 Chicanos and a Filipino guy. The Filipino guy, it was his dad's house right there in Stewart Street, downtown Berkeley. Little yard and everything. About that time, Carlos Rios, one of my friends there, he had a girlfriend at the time, and I knew her quite well. Her name was Ana Ortiz. So she came to live. So she'd moved in with him, and there was that. So there's 4 or 5 of us there. We all had rooms, so it's kind of good. Then her sister comes up to visit her, and one thing led to another, and she became my girlfriend. She went to work at Spreckles Sugar in Emeryville. So we became close, and we became, she had cousins that lived there in the Bay Area. So I met some of her cousins. So her sister that I knew well, and she'd tell me about her sister, and one thing led to another. We become friends, and we're seeing each other, on the side. I'm classes, just doing my thing in classes, other activities. But I would, if I wanted to be with a woman, I'd try to make sure it was her. And so that was a good relationship. So I lasted a year and a half or so in school, and then I graduated, and then that was the changing point for me in many ways, because on that Mother's Day in that spring semester I graduated, 75, I sent my mother a bouquet of a dozen roses, telling I made it, I graduated.
Oh.
And I had not spoken to her, seen her decades. She and none of her friends back there, her son, knew anything about me. But the scuttlebutt got out real quick. You have a son? It lives in, so sending the flowers with the name on it, or her name on it, my name on it, selling Mother's Day, that led to a little scandal for her. So she had to fess up to everybody that, yes, I did have a son. So that was a changing point for many things, including her son, because he came out to see us, visit us. So you got a brother, sister. So that changed. That dynamic sort of changed a lot of things with everybody around me. So I got that happened in 75. So it didn't have a meaning or an effect on my relationship with Hildy. We ended up getting married in 81, which is 5 years after being there in Sacramento. I came back to Sacramento. I worked for the Mario Bledo administration under Carlos Alcala. I did some work for him in Cal, field work, and he was very impressed with it, and says, I got an appointment to work in the welfare agency, Civil Rights Division. I want you to come with me. I said, okay, I can do that.
I'm so sorry. I'm just going to stop you for a minute. You said Hildy is your wife?
Yes.
Hildy?
Yes.
And she's the girlfriend that you met in Berkeley, or is this another?
I met the girlfriend I met in Berkeley.
And that
through her sister.
Through the sister, and then 5 years later you married her. And you married her in Sacramento.
Sacramento.
In the Catholic Church.
In the Episcopal Church.
Episcopal Church. She's Chicana.
Chicana.
And this is 81.
Yes.
And you've reconnected with your mother, and your father says what?
He was like laissez-faire.
That's fine.
That's fine.
And how did you feel about the fact that your mother kept you a secret?
Well, my aunt, she sort of hinted at, that she left us and no one here has spoken to her, blah, 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 or, communicated with her. Her oldest sister, my Aunt Vic, who was also helped raise my other half brother, she died, and my mother didn't come out and see her. She just stayed away. So it's kind of strange that. So I didn't have, the highest regards for my mom at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty painful. I would imagine.
So there's the personal life, there's the military war in Vietnam, and then there's the resurrection of a good person, me going to college and graduating.
And you have your kids.
And I have my kids.
And do you talk to your kids and your wife about Vietnam? Or?
Yeah, I did quite a bit, especially my son. Mm-hmm. He was very curious about that.
When he became older, or as a kid?
As he became older.
Yeah. He
was very curious about that.
And
so I had these, these Kodak colored albums, of all the pictures we took. And before, I've not to digress here, I was noticing that the color was changing. So someone told me, get all your pictures changed to digital right as soon as you can, because it'll preserve the color, what's left of it. And they were right,
Yeah.
So I'll make a point to get the discs for you, but I'm not sure how to get to the pictures I'm looking for, but I'll try my best.
Yeah, it's okay. Chad's pretty good at that. But so you have your kids, you have your life, you're working for
Civil Rights Division and
is that a state? Is that the state of
yeah,
California?
Yeah.
And how do you like that? How did you like that?
The first part was great. The middle part wasn't so good. But the last 15 years were great.
Yeah.
So I went 32 years. So it was like 10 years, 8 years, and then 15 years. The last 15 years, I was really good. That was when I really, because I had put all my knowledge about what I had done in government before that to do my job as working as a policy researcher for the legislature. And so it was really helpful knowing where to find things, where information was, how to get to that information, how to utilize it.
Yeah. And if you were to talk to a young person, a young Chicano, about your service, and what would you tell them if they were interested in enlisting?
Well, today it's different than then. I would say, I initially, in my first part of the Army, I was pretty, I don't want to say gung ho, but I did everything right, according to the military process and procedures. I'd tell them, you're here for a reason. You want to be here for a reason because you volunteered to be here. If you're going to be here, do the best you can be the best you can. Don't respect the order, military order. Much of the thing I didn't do, but I tell them from my experiences and my mistakes, learn the ways of the military. The code's different. Everything's different about it compared to civilian life. That's what I would tell them, basically, is, be proud that you did this because you volunteered to do it, differently than being told to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on war?
They all changed. It changed really bad. Dramatically. I don't think our country sort of like come out of that period of Vietnam where they came out proud. I don't think we came out proud at all. I think a lot of people came to the conclusion, realization that we should never have been there in the first place. And so there's a whole culture that doesn't believe in what America is supposed to stand for nowadays. But now because the dynamics has changed, that Soviet Union is no longer a communist empire. It's a theocracy and and I like to call it a mafia country, where one man rules or one person rules, and they're not going to take no for an answer. That is, they're not going to be good capitalists, if you will. They're going to be, mafia capitalists. A good capitalist is, that your skills, your product will serve its own. It'll be, you made it and people buy it, and they like it, you're good at it. That's the art of capitalism. But I don't think the Russians are any good at it. They're just, they're not the kind of country you want to admire. So today, I'd say America is trying to find its way again. But after 2001, I'm not sure that the reasons for going to war changed any from Vietnam. The whole debacle in Iraq was the same debacle in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so it's been 20 years, and I'm hoping that in 20 some odd years now, that we got to be careful about where we venture into. And if we're not invited, don't go.